Hello, I'm making another one of these because I like making them and I have a lot to talk about. There's always a lot on my mind. Today is, I say today like this is a fucking series. God, that would be one of them times. I want to talk about something maybe a little bit more direct about the actual thing that is music. So I want to begin this by talking about music in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, right. So I used to watch a few reaction channels, especially around that sort of time, because I knew that I felt like I had something to say when it came to music, but I didn't understand music, or I didn't understand the music industry enough, or I didn't understand other people's consumption of music, and I felt unconfident in experience. And what I noticed was people's reactions in 2019 had like a spark. It was like 2021, everything was just completely desaturated. You had passionate hatred and passionate love in 2019, which is the way it should be. And in 2021, when you react to an album, collective you, unless you have, it was like you had to try, you had to consciously put effort into giving any reaction. It was like most people just wanted to kind of and just listen to it, which is a completely valid way to listen to it. That's how I listen to a lot of music myself. But when the genre is called a reaction, it kind of defeats the point. Anyway, so when I was looking at things like this, it was hard for me to not begin wondering why. On both ends of why are they reacting differently? What has happened to music for them to react differently? But one thing 2019 had that 2020 didn't, or rather I should probably say one thing 2020 had that 2019 didn't, was forced relativity. Forced, how do I phrase that easier? In 2019 you had you. That was it. It was just you in a room. 2020, someone who is 9 foot fucking 14 walks in and you go, I'm a bit small. That's my point. 2019 had nothing to make who you were or how you felt or what you were dealing with relative to what supposed real suffering is. In other words, music may have touched on lighter topics or more trivial topics, but you had lighter and more trivial problems, which you didn't know at the time, because you just had problems. They hurt, they made you worry, maybe you couldn't sleep at night. Songs come along and they validate them. Done. Spark. Reaction channel. Millions of views. But in 2020, so much went wrong that people started realizing, or people started beating themselves up because they would look at how they were feeling and how they were reacting and how they were perceiving and treating their problems in 2019, and they would go, fucking hell, that is so, they probably wouldn't say trivial, would they? But you know, like, that is ridiculous, that is so pointless, that's so weak compared to what we're dealing with now, which isn't a way to live. And I don't actually think their problems in 2019 were trivial, but the point is they think it is, and that's all we need. That's it. Problems already arisen. So music went from talking about I'm in love with this person, I fucking hate that one, I've shagged that one, I am the shit, I do loads of drugs, to oh wait, fuck, the world's dying, no one can think No one can do anything. No one's used to routine. No. Suddenly heartbreak sounds a bit boring. Suddenly doing drugs sounds trivial. I don't know, there was no escapism. Everything was too real and too horrible and too boring. And what this created was it was like a mirror had been put up to people. I know it really, really did for me. I didn't used to be like this, someone who, talks to his phone about abstract ideas about the world as a 20-year-old. I was pretty normal, so to speak, until the lockdown, and lockdown made me reevaluate my entire life. So I'm definitely another prime example of it. But it put up a mirror to people, and what so many people had to deal with was the fact of just how unstable they really are, how internally disharmonious they actually are. And that's a problem. And that shines through in the music, not just in the consumption of it, but in the creation of it. I think people forget that people make music. Sure, it's a fucking business by now, but people make music. And some people try to make it about things that have actually happened to them, or things that they're actually feeling or worrying about. And if you're so internally disharmonious, how are you going to write honestly if you don't have the strength or the understanding of why facing it, even if you don't feel like you have the strength, is so important? What are you going to write about beforehand? Because you can't write about all the stuff that was cool, because no one thinks it's cool anymore. What are you going to write about? Fucking nothing. And that's why music in 2021 was so shit. And it was. There were some good albums. Your Neighbours had a good album. Dodie had a good album. Paul Robeson had a good album. I'm fucking, yeah, going off topic. Right. Let's move on to the next point behind all of this. When you are faced with this ultimatum of face yourself to make a continuous line of your honest art, or find another way to somehow make work that people still value, 0.1% is going to do that one, and everyone else is going to do that one. And that's how we got TikTok songs. I think there's two ways that you can like a song. You can like that you like it, or you can not necessarily hate that you like it, but just be confused to why you like it. Sometimes you listen to a song and you go, it's a fucking good song. And other times you listen to it and go, oh, I'm annoyed, but it's making me want to, TikTok is a prime example of number two. People would claim that their attention spans are worse than ever. So the fix obviously wasn't to make things worthy of keeping your attention for and maintaining length. No, of course it wasn't. Of course it was to make things fucking minute length. It's so stupid how that was the thought process. Don't make shorter things, make better things. Quality retains attention anyway. But then this would lead me on to a video I watched recently, which was the inspiration for me making this. The video was about how albums are dying. I just sat there for however long it was, just so angry the whole time. I was like, no, they're not dying. And they kind of are dying, but they're not, as in they shouldn't be. It's ridiculous to think that they are. And the whole argument behind it was people aren't making what albums are. People don't perceive albums how they used to perceive albums. In the 70s, for example, vinyl was kind of all you had. And that's why 70s music is so beloved, and it is so good. It's my favourite decade of music by a mile. 70s music there's something so powerful about it, and the albums are so intentional and purposeful and filled with substance, and you enter the album one way and you finish it and you are a completely different person, or you think differently, or you feel different. That's what an album should be. But as the 80s come along and the 90s and so on, this is what the video said, more variations of entertainment were introduced, like arcades and film and things like that, even though obviously there was film in the 70s, but not as let's say not as pop culture friendly. So as time moved on and more things were introduced that could entertain us, even though music was still a really, really prominent one, it went from the only one to another one. And as film became more, I don't know what the word, let's make up a word, candyified, there you go. It was only a matter of time until music was as well. And now we get to today when it's not the core, it's not the thing, it's just the thing on top. You don't do listening to music, you do something and happen to listen to music. And I think that was one of the main things that kind of changed my life, was that I went from walking from here to here and happening to listening to music to going for a walk to listen to music. I do it every night. I just go for like a big hour and a half loop, start at my house, end at my house, and just listen to it. Make a playlist for myself on my computer and then go and walk and listen to it. And that's rare nowadays. I can feel it. If I explain that to someone, I was like, what, you just walk? I'm like, yeah, it's nice. I like it. So albums aren't albums anymore. They're not their playlists. And there's such a strong difference between a song and an album. And I don't mean in its definition, obviously. You could say an album is a collection of songs. So is a playlist. So what's the difference between a playlist and an album? And that's the main question. There are two ways to look at a song. You can look at what a song is, or you can look at what a song does. Looking at what a song does is where you are opening the door to making work that is 70s worthy versus TikTok worthy. Looking at what a song is, you are stripping it of its X factor, of its abstract, creative, intuitive, something that, you know, the best part of it, the heart of it, the humanity in it, the emotion in it. That's the intro. This is the ballad. This is the bit, oh, we need a hit. I fucking hate that phrase. It's reductionist. You are reducing a song from its core to, like, is a human just fingers and bones and shit? Well, they can't be, because if you watch your friend die, you feel like your friend isn't there anymore. So that's the whole soul argument. But let's say that there's like a soul to a song, and if you want to maintain the soul of a song, you can't look at what a song is. You have to look at what a song does. And the best way to be able to do that, or the clearest way to be able to present that, isn't with it being a singular thing, but it being reliant on all the other songs and it working with all the other songs. Like, the best songs are because of all the songs surrounding it. The context is what makes it powerful and important and memorable. And people don't write albums. They write songs. And this is one thing that I want to show you. Okay. These are the 5 main types of roles in the creation of a song. The songwriter is, they write the song. The producer is somebody that takes the song from me writing it on here to getting it on the computer and making it sound nice. Then what's the next? I don't know what it is. The engineer is the person, well, I rephrase that badly, the person that gets it from here onto the computer and makes it sound nice. So it would be the engineer's like the middleman. So it'd be, I do it on the piano, engineers in the room making sure everything sounds nice, and then once everything's recorded, producer comes in and helps everything with it. Session musicians are when you want a sound that no one else in the room can make. For example, I can play the piano pretty well. I can't play guitar very well, so if I want guitar that's as harmonically complex or interesting as my piano piece is, I'm going to need someone else to do it. Session musician. And then finally there's a mixer, which is the person that once the producer's finished everything and the song's done, the mixer or the masterer comes in and they make sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be in terms of its where it sits and then make sure that there aren't things clashing, high end, low end, blah 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 blah. Think of it like an image, right? You don't want too many shadows, too many highlights. You get my point. It could be this exact same rollout 14 times by these same 5 people, or let's say 7 people. Multiple of one of them. You can choose what one. I don't give a fuck. 14 times, 14 songs. Put an image on it. We've got an album. Who out of these people is looking at it like an album? None. That's why everything's gone to shit, album-wise. You aren't writing albums because from the original creation, no one is looking at it as an album. They're always and only looking at it as a playlist and calling it an album. So what do I propose is the fix? This is what I want to be. An album writer. So an album writer would be somebody who is a songwriter and a producer, or they can help with the production or whatever, but they aren't just looking at it reductionist wise, or with a reductionist mindset. That's probably a better way to phrase it. They aren't just looking at it as a song with chords and noise and things and this and that, and this can be the banger and this can be the ballad and this can be the ending. They are looking at it like a coherent piece of art. We've got to the point that music is a product, and we can't undo the fact that it is a product, but we can retake the fact that it can also be art. It can also be art. It's always going to be a product now, but we have a choice. It can either be a product and that's it, or it can be a product and art. It can be two things, and this is the way to make it two things. So an album writer is somebody that writes 12 songs, puts it in an order, puts an image on it, calls it an album and releases it. But the big difference is every song works because of the other one. Everyone should be writing concept albums. All concept albums are albums, but not all albums are concept albums. So you lose nothing from actually putting in the fucking work and being an album writer. And I also think this would work really well externally, like a band. This is what I want my job to be right now, because I don't think I've experienced enough of life to sit down and really write what I think my first album can be. I have an idea. I have an idea for my first 3 albums. We'll see the story and everything behind it and why I'd make it. But like my dream right now would be a band messages me and says, we know that you know a lot about concept albums. We want to write one. Can we fly you out, give you a bed, make sure that you're fed, and then you help us write not 14 songs, but an album. God, if I received that message by anyone right now, I think I'd probably cry. Think of it like, and this will be my final point, think of it like a film. A screenwriter only writes scenes, but they're not a scene writer. They're a screenwriter. Because if you only have one scene, it's nowhere near as powerful, because all of the other scenes are the reason that one is so powerful. You write songs. You shouldn't be a songwriter. Be an album writer.